Hello, students. Professor Benavides here. Let's talk about Chapter 3. And boy, wow, does this chapter have a lot of stuff in it. It says it's about input-output, but it covers input and output not only in Alice, but in Java. Talks about getting input from the console window as well as getting input from a GUI. It also introduces package statements, and it also talks about formatting numbers, formatting currency. The list goes on and on and on. So this chapter does pack a wallop. It's chapter 3. It's called Input and Output, and so we'll talk about applying formats to our numbers. We'll also talk about getting input from the console window, referred to as the console input, as well as getting input from a dialog box, which is some people refer to as GUI. We'll talk a lot about import statements, and when you talk about import statements, you're talking about getting a better understanding of the Java library and understanding what kind of classes are available for us to use. So we'll start off with getting data from the console window. Rather, you may think of this as rather primitive, but remember, programming is programming, and you got to start here. So in order to get something from the console window, which is simulated for us inside of NetBeans on the lower part of the window there, the output window, that's really, in a sense, the command prompt. So in order to work there, in order to get stuff from there and show stuff to there, you need to import the scanner class. But not only that, you have to be aware of what kind of data do I want to get. If I'm asking you for your name, well, that'll be a string. In that case, we'll use the next line method or the next method. If I'm asking you for how old you are, well, I could use byte or short or int or long, but depending on how old you are, maybe you're a vampire, who knows. If I'm asking you how much money you make, probably use a double, and so basically the idea here is what method you end up using here is determined by the data that you want to acquire. So it looks like this. You type in an import statement to the scanner class, and this import statement has to appear outside the body of the class. So here we started a project called age. And if you'll notice right above age, we go ahead and type in a line of code that says import java.util.scanner, semicolon, right? So this is needed to import the scanner class. It's in the util package. So inside of main, the first thing we do is we create a scanner object. You can call it anything you want. I like to call mine input. In this case, we see that it's being called keyboard. And here we're introduced to creating an object. An object is created with the new keyword. The new keyword calls the constructor, which constructs the object. So scanner is a class. The object is keyboard, gets new scanner, and we pass it system.in. System.in gives us the functionality to acquire information at the keyboard. So then we go ahead and prompt the user, we'll enter your age, and then that's where that method comes in that we were talking about. The method you choose for that import object is determined by what you want to bring in. Okay, so in this particular case, I want to go ahead and bring in a whole number, and that's going to go into the age variable, which is of int data type. And then we just simply do a little feedback to the console window with an S out. We say you are concatenated age years old. All right. So here's the output window down here. Before we say enter your age, and then we just simply show the information back to the screen. So additional input examples using the scanner class. In this case, we create the scanner object. We go ahead and prompt for one number, prompt for another number, and then we perform a little math, and then we show the output on the screen. Notice how output is being constructed by concatenating variables with strings. Okay, so here we show our output down below. All right. Take a moment to look at it. And then that brings us to dealing with GUI. But before we go on to GUI, let's go ahead and do a small little demo on this. So I'm going to go ahead and start NetBeans up. And we'll take like little portions of the main idea here. The main idea is using the scanner class. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new project. I'm not going to store it in our structure that we save thing. I'm going to just store it on the desktop because I'm not going to really need to save this. We're going to create a Java application, go to next, and I'm just going to call it Chapter 3 Demo. Okay, it's already designated to go on the desktop, and I'm going to get rid of the package statement. Okay, clicking finish. So let me go ahead and give myself a little more space to type my code in. Get rid of the Alice palette. And the first thing I want to do is go ahead and go over here to main. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and press enter here so I can align my curly brackets and get rid of what's inside of the main method so that we can go ahead and type in some code. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have a simple prompt, but I realize that in order to create a scanner object, I have to have an import statement to that class. So I'm going to come over here above the class. While I'm here, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of the needless comments up there. And I'm going to go ahead and have my import statement. You press the tab key, it takes you and gives you the rest of the characters on there. See how I just type in SC, tab, semicolon, enter. And while I'm here, I might as well just, this is just an oversimplification of the screen so that I can not be distracted. I get rid of needless comments and align things vertically so that things look nice. Okay. So here we have a very nice beginning, and I have the scanner class imported. Remember, scanner class needs to be outside. The import to the scanner class needs to be outside the body of the project or the class. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and create a scanner object. And I'm going to terminate this line with a semicolon, because remember, all lines in Java end in a semicolon. Then I'm going to go ahead and do a simple prompt. And then I'm going to say S out, tab. And I'm going to say, what's your name? She didn't cover that, right? And instead of a print line, I'm going to do a print, because I want the blinking cursor to be to the right of the semicolon, right? And then I realize that this is going to be a string. It's not going to be a whole number. It's not going to be a double. Those are really the big three that we're going to put in here. So I'm going to put this in a variable. I'm just going to call it name, right? So string name gets. Now here we're going to have to use that scanner object that we created. Put in the period. This is really important here. We got to look for the method that will bring in what we need, which would be a string, which would be next line. Next line provides a carriage return, right? So the idea here is that when you put in the period, type in any, and you put in just a few characters, you can go ahead and just choose from the drop down here. See how I did that? So here, we're not going to do any manipulation to this. I'm just going to go ahead and do another S out and say, hello, concatenate this. Remember, when you concatenate, you have a string, you have the plus sign, which is the not a addition, but a concatenation. And we're going to put the name variable on here. Okay, if you want to put something after that, you'll have to put in another string. Why not say hello and then whatever. So now I'm going to go ahead and run this simple demo. We'll come back and do some more extravagant demos in just a minute. But here you see at the bottom, it says, what's your name? See, I have to actually click down there. So I'm going to go ahead and put in Bob. If I could spell my name right. And then it says, hello, Bob. Okay, not exactly rocket science, but look at all the work that you had to do if you wanted to deal with, the console window, right? We had to have an import statement, we had to create a scanner object, and then we had to do a prompt, and we had to use an appropriate method depending upon the data that we wanted to bring in. And then finally, we used concatenation show output. Okay, well, that's my little demo on the scanner object. Let's go on and talk about our next topic. So we talk about GUI now, and there's a lot of GUI. In this book, we only deal with dialog boxes. If you take other classes, they will show you how to create windows. Actually, we will learn how to create a window later on at the very, very end, the last chapter on GUI and graphics. But for right now, we're going to be using only a dialog box. So we'll have to have an import statement, and the import statement would be to bring in the JOptionPane class, which will allow us to create a dialog. So a dialog, what's a dialog? Dialog is where you have a dialog with the user. You ask them for something or you show them something. So all GUI resides in the swing package. Okay. So we're going to have to go ahead and have an import statement. And then we'll use an appropriate method. In this case, we'll use the show input dialog method. And it's an overloaded method. It has multiple different kinds of parameters. And in this particular case, it's got two. We're going to pass two arguments to it, where we just simply say enter Fahrenheit. And this is what we get. And we say, well, that's a lot of code for just this. Well, look at all what you get for free. You get the question mark, you get the text box, you get the cancel button, the OK button. All that's for free. I mean, somebody wrote that. How did you get all that? Well, that's all part of the JOptionPane class. Okay. So, but we're not over yet. Everything that comes in through a dialog is a string. For that matter, everything that comes in through the console window is a string also. We have to convert it. I didn't do any conversion in the little demo that I showed you because it was a string. But if I would have asked you for how old are you, I mean, certainly I could have brought that in as a string. But if I wanted to go ahead and use that in some kind of mathematics, then I would have to actually convert it. But for my simple demo right now, I'm just simply going to bring it in, and I'm going to go ahead and show it on the screen, just as a quick demonstration of using the methods called show input dialog to acquire information by means of an input, a text box here, and then to show the data in the show message dialog box. Okay, so I'm pretty much going to go ahead and do the same thing on there. You can go ahead and amplify this to prompting one time, another time performing mathematical manipulations, and then showing the output on here. And then that brings us to the topic of formatting. So let's just go ahead and do a simple little demo on this. So I'm going to go ahead and go File, New Project, and Java Application, Next. And I'm going to go ahead and call this Chapter 3, and I guess I'll call it GUI App. Or GUI, GUI, or GUI, that's good enough. Right, it's on the desktop. I'm going to get rid of the package statement. And click Finish. Okay, so now, as you all know, I'm going to get rid of the needless comments at the top. And that just clears the screen up a little bit. What it does for me is it helps me to zero in on what's important and what's not important. It helps me focus. You know, so a lot of people don't spend time on this, but I do. Okay, so remember, we write all our code inside of main, but what I want to do is I want to use the dialog. So I'm going to have to go ahead and have an import statement. And the import statement is the JOptionPane. So that would be JABAX. And that is inside the swing package. And the class that we're bringing in is JOptionPane. Okay. Now that brings us to main. And let's go ahead and use this now. Let's just say, hey, what's your name? Same old kind of idea. This is just a quick and dirty, just let's bang it out kind of story here. So string, we'll say response, gets JOptionPane. And then we're going to have the, we're going to use the show input dialog. And then in this particular case, we'll just say no. And then we'll say, what's your name? All right. Remember, all statements in Java terminate semicolon. So in this particular case, I have to think, if this was like an integer, if I had say, you know, how old are you? You know, that would be an int. So I would say something like int age gets, and then I would use the integer class, you know, to go ahead and bring that in, you know. If it was, say, for example, floating point, for example, if I would ask you, you know, what is your hourly rate? That would be a double. So you have to actually think ahead of time. Okay. So like, you know, just I get, and last time I just did a string thing. Let's do an integer this time, just to give you, let's say, what's your age, right? Let's just change it around a bit, right? So that still has to go into response because it's a string. I've got to convert it. Now, if it was a string already, I wouldn't have to go through this conversion. I could just deal with response right away. You can just imagine that, right? So in this particular case, and I would say int age gets integer. And then we're going to have to use the parse int method. And guess what? Parse response. And then here for output, I'll go ahead and just use the show message dialog. And we'll say something like hello, and then, you know, whatever name kind of thing that was, right? We can go ahead and say hello. I think that I'm going to do it pretty much. Oh, no, I'm going to say you are, you know, concatenated with age, concatenated with. A lot of people forget that space after the double quotes, years old, period. Okay, so when I run this, it's going to go say, what's your age? All right. 300, I'm a vampire, right? Oh, so you're 300 years old, right? So here we go. Pretty much a parallel, except in this case, I showed you how you have to go ahead and you know, convert the data. Why? Because everything that comes in either through the console, right? Everything that comes in through the console or through a GUI is a string. You know, so if it's a string, it's really important that you convert it to whatever data type that you need, right? So if I ask you what's your hourly rate, then you're going to have, instead of integer dot parse int, you'll say double dot parse double, right? So the chapter goes, you know, gives you a long list of them, but there's only 3 or a few, really only a few you'll need. I mean, if it's a whole number, you'll use the integer class, right? You know, and if it's a double, you use the double class. If it's a GUI. Now, if it's a console app, you'll use next int or next double from the scanner object. Okay. All right. So that's a little. We'll come back to this, I promise. I just wanted to show you a brief demo of using a you know, a GUI app versus a you know, console app. I refer to them as console app when you use the scanner class, right? So now that brings us to formatting, okay? So in this particular case, and we can build, maybe we can build on what we have, you know? This formats numbers, and this is a currency formatter. Like, for example, you have to work real hard to get the dollar sign and the period, you know? You're going to have an import statement. You're going to have to create a number format object. And then on top of that, you're going to have to use the format method of that object, pass the variable to it so that it can get formatted in this particular way. So in distinction to the, you know, currency formatter or the number format class, we've got the decimal format class. Now, decimal format class allows us for a little bit more customization. You know, we can go ahead and specify required numbers or optional numbers. So it's really provides for a little bit more of a customization of your string here. And then she just goes and gives you a variety of examples. So let's go ahead and bang out a few of these. Like, say, for example, let's say I want to ask for, you know, how much money you make, right? Let's maybe I can go back to, let's go back to my other, the demo 3.1, the console app. And in here, what's your name? Hello, whatever. And then, well, how's that, right? Let's say I want to say, oh, what's your hourly rate, right? Oh, I'm going to cheat. Don't look. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go ahead and copy these 2 lines. And I'm just going to, let's see if it works out. I don't know. You know, when you copy and paste, you either save time or you're going to go ahead and create a not an error. So I'm going to say, what's your hourly rate? I know I've got an error, and I'll fix that in just a minute. Okay. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to use the input object, but it's not going to be next line. I mean, I could use next line, and if certainly the reason why I'm getting this problem here, this error here, is that name has already been used. So I'm going to go ahead and just say rate. See how it goes away? But guess what? I don't want it to come in as a string, because that maybe I want to go ahead and give myself a 5% raise or something like that. You know, if that's me. So instead of next line, I have to match it up. Now remember, if it's money, we're going to use the double data type. So I'm going to say input dot next, and we're going to go ahead and just double click on next double. Okay. So that should go ahead and that doesn't seem to be working on here. So let's see why. Oh, string. I didn't change the string. I said it was a double. Didn't I just say that you were going to save time, or you were going to go ahead and create a problem? Okay, so now I'm ready to go ahead and have a little S out and say, oh, but before I do an S out, I want to go ahead and format it. Yeah, but guess what? Before I format it, I'm going to have to create a formatting object, right? And I have to have a special import statement. So I'm just banging it out as I go along, just give you some real live code demonstrations of what we're talking about here, right? So let's just say import, and we're going to go ahead and bring in text dot or java.text dot number format. Okay, so that's my import statement. So I'll just come over here and create my number format object. And I'll just put in, I'll call it CF for currency format. And we'll use the get currency method or get currency instance to go ahead and create a currency formatter object. So then I'm going to go ahead and say name makes rate per hour. How's that? Let's just see if that's, and we'll try and problem solve that. Oh, look, I forgot the first plus sign here, concatenation, right? So name is the variable. So that would say if I entered in Bob, it would say Bob makes $10 per hour, right? Let's see if that works out. So what's your name? I'll go ahead and put Bob. And it says, hello, Bob, what's your hourly rate? Okay, let's go ahead and say 300. Let's pretend I'm a lawyer, right? Oh, you think that's too much? Let's say I'm a plumber. All right, so $500 an hour. So Bob makes, oh, guess what? Look at this, it's not formatted. So what do I gotta do to format that? I've gotta go ahead and use the format method of the number format object that I just created. So this is the way I do it. I just come over here, this, and then I'm going to go ahead and do a Control X, and I'm going to say CF. That's the object dot format, and in the parenthesis, I'll just do a Control V and put the variable in there. What that's going to do is you're going to pass rate as an argument to the format method of the currency formatter object. So this right here on line 18 is referred to as a currency formatter object. Let me go ahead and run this, give you another idea. So what's your name? Bob. Hello, Bob. What's your hourly rate? I'm an electrician this time. So Bob makes $400 per hour. Okay. So that's how you format things. I don't know why I'm on here. I guess I probably could. Let's do the other one then. You know, the but something that would go ahead and you know, make sense. I'll just say, how many units did you sell today? How's that? Yeah. And then we'll go ahead and format that to with a 1,000 separator, right? Now this is going to be well, we'll have to make that an int because I want to do units. I mean, how many people sell a half a unit, right? Do you ever buy like a half a donut? Maybe. I mean, so I'm just going to copy that, put it down over here, and I'm going to go ahead and say, how many units did you sell this month? Something like that, right? How many units did you sell this month? Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm just going to call this units, right? And of course, it should be a whole number. So this is not a double, this is an int. So this would be next int. So the next int, what we'll do is we'll use the next int method to go ahead and get that string and convert it to an integer. So now all I have to do is just feed it back. I'm not doing any kind of expression or manipulation of the numbers. I'm simply going to go ahead. I'm just getting it and showing it, right? So I'm going to say S out, and then I'll say something like, you know, Bob, no, Bob name, right? Space sold. Then how many units sold? This month. And yeah, I know I have to spell month right, right? So M-O-N-T-H, and I'll come back and fix the misspelling. I just can't stand misspelling things, right? So I keep forgetting that first plus sign, right? The concatenation sign. So Bob sold. Remember, there needs to be a little space here. Otherwise, the Bob and sold end up getting stuck together. You know, 1,000 units this month. So I'm going to have to create my decimal formatter this time. So to create the decimal formatter, I have to bring in, I'm going to have to go ahead and bring in a different class. So import java.text.decimal format, right? Now what some people do is they'll just go ahead and say, you know what, both of those, number format and decimal format, they're both inside of text package. So I'll just say import java.text.asterisk. It's use a little wildcard. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create my decimal formatter object. Let's use the same kind of idea here. So that'll be decimal format. And I'm just going to say df. She uses different variable names, but these object different names for these objects, but it doesn't really matter. We'll create new decimal format. And we'll pass it a pattern. This is the pattern that we want to give the number. So we'll just give it 1,000 separator. Okay. Will that work out? Will do we want number of units or sales? Yeah, let's do sales. How much did you sell this month? So as you can see here, by the way I'm thinking here, this is not going to be an int anymore. So I know I'm changing things, but I'm showing you how you got to choose the right data types. I mean, if I ask you for units, that's an int, but in this case, I'm going to do double because maybe they sold 2,050 cents. You never know. So after the object, then we'll say next double. All right, so we're almost there, guys. Almost there. So I've got sales in. I've got my decimal formatter. I need to terminate the line on there. And instead of units, well, what I don't want to do, yeah, I guess I probably should. Well, let me show you how you could do currency with the number formatter as well as the decimal formatter, right? So that would be df, right? Dot format, and then sales. I think I messed up a little bit of my logic on here, but that's fine, because in this case, I can show you how you can end up putting a dollar sign on either. It doesn't matter which one you use. I mean, if I go ahead and put a dollar sign on there, you're going to see that I ended up accomplishing the same thing. Oh, that little demo works out good. I show you how I can use the number format class as well as a decimal format class. But basically, we'll typically use the decimal format class to format numbers that are not necessarily money. But you can if you want to. Let's go ahead and see if this works out. If it doesn't, we'll fix it. So what is your name? Bob. Hello, Bob. What's your hourly rate? And then how much did you sell this month? And then Bob sold $2,000 this month. Okay. Now, why does $2,000 not have .00? Because pound sign is optional. If I want to go ahead and make this required, I have to do that. All right, so let's run this again. So what's your name? Bob. Hello, Bob. What's your hourly rate? 10. Bob makes $10 per hour. How much did you sell this month? 2,000. 20,000. Pretty good. Bob sold 20,000. So notice now that it's got the .00 on here because I changed the optional to required. Okay, so this is a console app. Pretty much the formatters that that I just went over, they pretty much work the same way in a whether you're using a GUI app. Like for example, we come over here to the GUI app. We could pretty much do the same thing here. So if I go ahead and copy this and come down over here and say, how much did you sell? Let's try and do the same thing, right? and we'll pretend it's for the whole month, on here, right? And of course, you're getting that error message because you can't declare the object the same variable twice. Now I can use the same variable, I can mutate it. So in this particular case, what I'm doing here is I'm just going to go ahead and use that variable again, not declare it. If I wanted to, I could have called it response 2, right? So in this particular case, we'll say double sales. And of course, it's not going to be an integer, so it would be using the double class. And of course, we'll have to say parse double, right? All right, and it still gets response, put it in there. And then we'll just go ahead and push that out to the screen. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy that, put it over here, and say, you sold, and then sales. This month, right? So I'm just getting, and I'm not manipulating, I'm just getting it and showing it on the screen. Now that this is not going to get formatted, right? It's not going to get formatted because I didn't create a decimal formatter, did I? If you the proof for this, let's just go ahead and run it. What's your age? 12. You're 12 years old. How much did you sell? $20,000. Look at that, it's not formatted, right? So how do I format? Yeah, we're going to have to create a decimal formatter again. Let's use we could use the number format class. So it'll be import Java dot, in this particular case, text. Let's use the wildcard. All right. That'll bring in both the number format class and the decimal format class. And then I'll just use the number format class. And I'll say NF, right, for number format. And this is all context sensitive. You have to put in the right capital letters. The one good thing that the editor will help you with is that you only need to remember just a little bit. Once you put in that period, you get this little drop down, and you say, oh, what do I need to do? Well, get currency instance. Just press the tab key again, and boom, you've got your currency formatter object. So now all you'll have to do is just come over here. Remember, my style is here. To go ahead and do a Control X on here. Do the CF. No, this is NF dot format. So we're using the format method. I'm going to go ahead and pass it Control V, sales. So let's go ahead and see if this works out. I always test everything. Otherwise you may think you're doing something right, but you may not. So let's go ahead and put in age. You are 65 years old. How much did you sell? I say, well, 2,000, not 20,000, right? So you sold. Notice how that is formatted. Now, when you say get currency instance, this gives you a flat-eyed $, comma, and two decimal places. If you want a formatted kind of output, you're going to want to go ahead and use a decimal formatter instead. Okay? Well, all right. So let's come back over here and continue talking about this chapter. Now we talk about importing packages. We have been doing that all along, but let's review that. First of all, we get only, by default, the java.lang package. This gives us a basic functionality to do Java programming. So the java.lang package is so basic that it's always imported into every Java program. If you want to do anything else. Now, what did we do so far? We used a scanner class to bring in, to be able to do a console app. We brought in the JOptionPane, or bring in a dialog, have some GUI, graphical user interface. Then we went ahead and brought in the number format class from the text package, and we did that so that we could go ahead and format our numbers. So the whole idea here is that libraries in Java are called packages. You're just being introduced to a few of them. Everything that you want to do extra other than java.lang, you'll have to have an import statement. Let's say, for example, you want to bring in an access database, right? Or a text file, or you want to work with graphics. Guess what? Those are all different packages that you will need to go ahead and import, right? You'll end up doing the same thing. Most of the time, you'll end up importing and then creating an object and then using the methods of that object to go ahead and do what you need to get done. Like say, for example, if you want to open a file, right? We won't be working with files in this class. Later on, when you take more advanced Java classes, working with files is really what it's all about, right? Because, you know, most of our business applications require you to go ahead and make sure that the data is saved, right? So you've got a really big jumping, you know, really big, something to jump over really big, you know, in the next few months or days to be, you know, truly knowledgeable about Java. So here she introduces you to the wildcard, which is the asterisk. So then instead of typing in number format and decimal format separately, you use the asterisk to go ahead and do that. Well, that's pretty much, I want to say the end of the chapter, but it's really not the end of the chapter. Remember the hands-on exercises, and they're almost too many in chapter 3. The hands-on exercises, they may not be assigned by your professor, but they give you hands-on experience. And the more you repeat this stuff, the better off you'll be. Like in this one here, let's just eyeball what we're doing. We're going to import the scanner class, right? We're creating a scanner object. We're prompting the user for enter a programming language. We see that that's a string that comes in into a variable called lang. Then we just simply ask another prompt. You know, so we have enter your celebrity, a celebrity's name. So it goes on and on. We have the next line method bringing in strings, right? And you see what it what it looks like here. This is called a Mad Lib. You know, many people find these entertaining. You may want to go ahead and just do this for fun if it's not been assigned to you. The next one on here is the Alice clock, or not the Alice clock, but she asks you to go ahead, or the author asks you to go ahead and put a clock on. And by the way, this is the only Alice application, you know, on here. And the reason why this particular one is important is because she has you put the clock in here. She has you write one line of code, but guess what? Her intentions, or the intentions, are not to continue working in Alice, but to then bring this into NetBeans and to continue, right? So what I probably want to do is I want to go ahead and, you know, sort of just give you like top level view of what this is all about on here, right? So that after you create this little clock in Alice, you're going to go ahead and save it. And then you're going to go ahead and open up NetBeans and you're going to click on Java project from existing Alice project. And you're going to go ahead and add some code and amplify the concepts on here, right? So let me just go ahead and sort of simulate this a little bit. Let me go ahead and, for example, let's open up Alice. And I'm just going to save this to the desktop. I already have it created in the proper folder, you know. So she has you come in here, and this is just, I'm not reading through the directions properly. Remember, you go into scene setup. She has you look for a clock. You could just go search, and then I think it's clock, right? And then you just get it, put it on the screen, right? She has you do some other things. She wants you to delete the background on here. This may not be apparent to you, but you got to go to the object tree over here, right? Must click on the project tree on the ground, and go ahead and delete that. That's how you get this funny background, okay? Then we go ahead and come over here and you add one line of code. But I'm not going to go there because basically all you do is just save it, right? Let me go ahead and show you my completed code. I'm not going to save this. And on the desktop, I've got that completed code. And it's really not a whole lot. I think it's just one line of code. And you may not have a file association like I have there. Otherwise, if that doesn't work for you, you'll have to go to Alice and then open it up. You only add one line of code on there. So the intentions is to, the only thing that you did on here was to add a comment by clicking on the comment tab and dragging it over there and dropping it. And then she had you go ahead and drag the roll method onto the screen. Okay. After you do that, let me just walk you through this real simply on here. She asks you to save and close, right? And then what she wants you to do is to go ahead and start a new NetBeans project. And instead of choosing a Java application, go ahead and choose Java project from existing Alice project. Go to next. And then what you're going to have to do is navigate to where that file is. So we're going to have to go to browse. I have mine on the desktop. It's called Learning Java. It's on the exercises folder. I believe it's chapter 3. And then go on here, right, and click open. Now, it shows you that by default, it's going to put it on the desktop, but you could browse and put it somewhere else. You never want to click finish until you verify that you know where you're putting your project folder. Otherwise, you're going to end up doing all this work and you're going to say, well, I have no idea where I just saved this stuff to, right? So what you do now is you click finish, say yes, and then you continue going through the steps. But basically what you're going to find here is that there's a method called my first method, and it brings in the comments and the line of code that you had in here, and then she ends up saying for you to go ahead and change it. Okay, so let me go ahead and close this, and let me go ahead and open up the one that I've already created. I'm going to go ahead and open up project, and I'm going to go ahead and go to the desktop, Learning Alice. I put it in exercises in chapter 3, clock, open. Okay. Now, if things don't open for you, what you have to end up doing, and that happens sometimes, here's my project. Here are the different classes. Your code in this particular case is going to be in the scene file. You're going to have to double click on that so that you can go ahead and see the my first method, okay, method, you know, if you will. See how oh, that wasn't the one I was going to bring in. Here's the other one. It's got 2 clocks on here, sorry. That was the first demo that I created. Let's go to the one that's complete and double click on scene. This is the one that's complete. So as you can see here, I added some extra spaces. I aligned it. I made it look pretty. I aligned my curly brackets. The comments came in. So the first thing she has you do is she has you prompt the user to enter the hours. Then you'll go ahead and bring that in as an int. Then she has you go ahead and convert that by divide by 12 to because it's 24 hours, right? So then you go ahead and call the function to go ahead and roll to that particular hour. Then you pretty much do the same thing for minutes and parse that, put that in here, you know, hours. I probably could have called that minute, probably would have been better. Oh, no, that's time. And then divide time by 60, because that's the prompt, right? Yeah, that's time. Yeah, that's just the prompt that's coming in, you know, on here. And in that particular case, that gives us the minutes. And we use the roll method to roll left that number of minutes. So let's see what happens here. And some of my students, when they run this program, they say, you know what, the hour, it's not lining up really good. And that's the imprecision of this graphic. So if I put in, like, say, for example, 6 o'clock per hour, see how it doesn't, well, it's kind of lined up a little bit, but some people say it's like off a little bit. Let's try 20 minutes. And see how it looks like it's pointing to 21. And that's because the graphic is not on a one-on-one representation with the actual roll So that's this particular thing now. I will leave you with this idea here. People are getting really confused about these, what I'm going to show you, talk about right now. This right here, that's your Alice project. This right here is your NetBeans project. This right here with the .bak is created when you create an Alice project, and you're not going to be dealing with this at all in this class. Some people get confused between these two. You just have to remember that that clock.bak was created with Alice. Hopefully you won't get confused, with that. Okay. All right. So coming back on here, lots of other hands-on exercises. Really, in a way, they're almost too many, but they provide you with good hands-on experience. Here's one that computes Celsius on here. In this particular case, we just do assignments, and from that, she ends up bringing in the JOptionPane class so that we can have a dialog to prompt for Fahrenheit instead of having an assignment statement. So we've chapter 2, you remember we did assignment statements. We said age gets 12, semicolon. But now we say, what's your age? So we get that, that's a string, and then we assign that to age. Of course, it has to be converted from a string to a numeric. So this will give you the practice that you need to go ahead and solidify your knowledge of prompting and converting and things of that nature. Same thing with the Moneychanger. It's a GUI now. Instead of doing an assignment statement, she converts this into an application that prompts the user by means of a dialog, the show input dialog method now. So you've graduated from a chapter 2 concept of assignment statement to a prompt on here. And then let's see what else we got here. This is a tip program, another cute little tip program here. And that brings us to the summary. So the summary talks about the currency formatter, the decimal formatter, talks about scanner objects and GUIs, creating GUI, graphical user interfaces. And then that brings us to the review questions. Highly recommend that you work on them, and then the assignments on here. All right. I want to go ahead and just close with, let me see if I can go ahead and do a quick little demo of a program that I've created or that I will create. Let's see if I can get away with it. I don't have it in NetBeans, but let me go ahead and see if I can bring it in to NetBeans. So let's go ahead and start NetBeans. And I'm going to go File, New Project. In this particular case, it's going to be a Java application next. And I'm going to go ahead and call this Total Sales GUI. Right, I'm going to put it on the desktop, and I'm going to get rid of the package statement. Clicking Finish. All right, let's see if I can live life dangerously. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all this code and copy in the code that I have from another program. And let's see if I get lucky. What you have to do when you do stuff like this is the name of the project has to match. So Total Sales GUI, and I've got no errors. So I think I did it right. So I've got a whole bunch of package statements on here. And let's just follow along with the logic on here. I asked for item number, right? So that goes into an int. Then I ask for units sold. That goes into an int. Then I ask for cost per unit. That's going to be a double. And then I'm going to go ahead and perform mathematics, have an expression, which would be a double total sales is being computed as the units sold times the cost per unit. Then I create my decimal formatter or my number formatter, and I'm just going to go ahead and assign everything to a string called output. using concatenation, and I'm going to use the formatting objects to format not only I'm going to format the unit sold so it has like a comma on here, right? And it's all optional on here. I can't see how you could have a unit sold as being fractional, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the .00 on here. Let's just go ahead and run this and see what's going on. So item number, that's going to be meaningful to you, right? Units sold. God, good sales. Seems like iPods, right, or iPhones or whatever, right? For a minute on the earth. You think they sell 20,000 a minute? I have no idea. I'm just making that up. Cost per unit. I remember when I bought my son's first iPod in when was it? Late 90s, I don't know, or the turn of the century, as perhaps. So what was it? 80, 90 bucks, maybe even more. It was probably like 100. Let's do 120. So you can see how the comma comes out on units sold, and the cost per unit's got the $ on here, and total sales. Wow. Oh, $2,400,000, right? Can you imagine? That's pretty good money, right? So that's my little demo of using a console app. What makes this a console app is using the scanner object, right? The scanner object is used to go ahead and do that, right? I want to go ahead and do just a little quick little demo also on creating a GUI application. So let's just go ahead and go File, New Project, Java Application, Next, and I'm going to call this Total Sales. What was the other one called? Oh, wait a minute, that wasn't a scanner object. This was a JOptionPane. Before I get out of here, let me go ahead and get rid of this here. And look at this. Look at this. Come back to this before, because I don't like, and I criticize some students for doing this, and here I am doing it myself. You see this little yellow line on here? That means that line of code was not used anywhere. This is a GUI application, so I'm not using the scanner. I was gonna say it shows recording a poor thought. Is that why would you go ahead and declare something and not use it? So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of that, because this is, this is a GUI application. It does not utilize a scanner object. If I said that, I'm sorry. It is a GUI application. It's total sales GUI, right? Right. So let's go ahead and do another one on here. And Java application. And I'm going to go ahead and call this Total Scale Scanner. So on the desktop, going to get rid of the package statement. Click it on Finish. And then I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of all this code on here and pop in the code that I have somewhere else to see if I get lucky. Yeah, the classes, the project and the class match up, decimal format, and this is a scanner, right? The other one was a demo of a GUI app, right? So I brought in the swing package. In this particular one, we're going to go ahead and utilize the scanner object, right? So I create a scanner object. I ask for item number, unit sold. It's pretty much the same application, isn't it, right? Pretty much the same. I have a bunch of S outs. I utilize some escape codes here, blast from chapter 2, to sort of tab things out a little bit. Let's see what it looks like. So if it's a console app, it's going to run down here below. Item number, unit sold, cost $130, and there is the total sales, and looks good. Now notice how units sold does not have the .00, but so you're never gonna, I don't think you're gonna, it's conceptually possible to have a half a unit, so I'm gonna go ahead, remember we would go ahead and change this pattern. I think it would be better to go ahead and have it like that. Okay, but other than that, my friends, I believe that that's pretty much chapter 3. Before I leave on this, notice here how we have a column, sort of like an alignment on here. That's being done with the \T. It's an escape code. And another thing that you'll notice here is I have a \N at the beginning of this print line. Now, what does that give us? That \N gives us this blank line that's separating my input from my output. Now, did I need it? No, but I think visually it really, really does help. Okay, so that, my friends, that's pretty much the end of this chapter. Like I said, it was called input and output, but as you could see, it covered quite a lot. It talked about Alice. You started out in Alice and you brought it into NetBeans and you created a dialog box in there, and you prompted for what, the hour and the minute. And you brought it in, like I said, you brought it into NetBeans, and you continued to code in a more of a Java kind of way, taking advantage of the GUI. Like what a lot of students do is they end up asking me, I want to change the GUI. Can I do that inside of NetBeans? And the answer is, the quick answer is no, because there's no way to graphically drag and drop stuff like you can in Alice. You can do some drag and drop, but that's for an advanced topic, and it's mostly for forms and text boxes and buttons and stuff like that. Okay. So, I mean, you could go ahead and create by hand the classes, but that's really a long time from now that we would actually be talking about that. So just realize is that the idea here is to create something really fast in Alice, a graphical environment, bring it in to NetBeans, and to use this richer, environment to code in a more of a Java type way with, the dot operator in an object.method kind of way. So that's chapter 3. Next chapter we'll be talking about bigger and better things. And hope you enjoyed today's session. Thank you.